أما بعد فقد قال جل جلاله وعما نواله في كتابه المبين كيف تكفرون بالله وكنتم أمواتا فأحياكم ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم ثم إليه ترجعون صدق الله العظيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد معدن الجود والكرم وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم وسل عليه. We had the privilege last time of engaging in the verse كيف تكفرون بالله وكنتم أمواتا فأحياكم ثم يميتكم ثم يحييكم ثم إليه ترجعون. This verse is I call this verse a constitutional verse because it sets out the constitution of our life, or I should say of our existence, and it shows us that there is much more to our existence that we actually appreciate. The only existence we know is from our date of birth to our date of death, but our manufacturer is giving us an insight into our existence. And whilst we cannot recall our existence as per the literature of the manufacturer, i.e. Al-Quran Al-Azim, we are provided this information to embark upon a quest to find out and explore ourselves and our reality as per what the manufacturer says. When you pick up an instruction manual for any machine, the manufacturer doesn't just put information there just for the fun of it. Every piece of information is important for the functionality of that product. Likewise, the product of the human being and its reality is something that the Quran has taken great emphasis upon to explain. And this is a first verse in which Allah Azza wa Jal is directly talking about the nature of our existence. And because we don't understand, or not we don't understand, we don't have that desire to understand, we therefore lead life like machines. Because as far as we're concerned, we don't have a past. And the future we don't know about. And the future that is depicted by scholars is one of horror and terror, that you will be punished in your grave, and you will be there is a horrific state on the Day of Judgment. And those scholars who do that are correct in their own way. Why? Because warning people of danger is also a logical a methodology. So those scholars who horrify or portray death to be a horrific thing, and the aftermath and the punishment of grave, and then the Day of Judgment, where there's going to be all sorts of further trials and tribulations, and then on top of that you're told, by the way, there's nothing you can do that would give you a get out of jail free card. There's no action that you could do that will give you an exemption. Ultimately it's up to Allah and His mercy, or if you're lucky, our Master Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam standing in front of you and saying, oh Allah, don't look at him, look at me. So then if that's what this whole thing is about, that we can't really do anything to change what is ahead, then why are we doing what we're doing? Isn't it a wasted exercise? If our namaz is not going to deliver a guarantee to us, then what are we doing? Those scholars who are warners, who warn and who tell you stories of horror just to warn you, they will come back to you and say, well, you've got to do it because you've got to do it. That's what an obedient servant is. But there is a perspective which is not given to people because those who have that perspective are very far and few in number. And that perspective is of those scholars who don't just look at the external part of the Quran, they look at the internal part and the purpose of the Quran and the real purpose of what this whole saga of existence, life and death is really all about. It's not just a farce that do whatever you do, it doesn't matter, you're still going to, nothing will guarantee you. No. If you step back, you'll start to, and you'll absorb what the Quran is actually trying to say, you'll see a picture emerges. And that picture is that, listen, you have to do what you've got to do, but there is a purpose which I have deemed for you, which is one of the most noble purposes in this entire universe. But you go to people and they say, I want to know my purpose in life. What is my purpose in life? I want to find my purpose in life. The only logical comment I've ever heard, and I have to concede it's from a Buddhist actually, who says, your main purpose in life is to find your purpose. And that's fine. Your main purpose is to find your purpose. But the Quran is giving you your purpose. This is your purpose. Find out who you are. Find out what you're doing here. Find out about this earth, this universe. You are a central component of this universe. What is your role? Your role isn't just to simply be born, grow up, go to school, get a job, pay bills, have children, procreate, and build an empire of property, and that's it, leave the world. That's not your purpose. That's your function. That's what you do to survive. And this insecurity, which especially Asian people have, is that they leave lots, they break their backs trying to earn money, and when you ask them, you don't need so much money, they say, for our children. And they don't give the time to their children, which is their real legacy. So what happens, and what has been happening for the last 30, 40 years, those who came in the 60s, they broke their backs, worked in factories, night shifts, the lot. When they died, they left a handsome legacy. But in a few years, gone. Those who inherited it didn't appreciate the value of it, because they didn't work hard for it. As far as they were concerned, yeah, father died, left 4 or 5 properties, thank you very much, but that's it. But how did that take them forward? They were insecure that they wanted to give prosperity, and there's nothing wrong with that, to leave prosperity for your children, but that must not be your purpose in life. That must be an objective. There's nothing wrong in having a portfolio for your children, but your purpose must never be changed. So what happens is people do all the different things, but they forget their real purpose. And the ulama are so accustomed to copy-pasting the same material again and again and again, and all you hear in lectures is round around a garden like a teddy bear, and it's the same thing again and again. You think, where are we going with this? Read namaz, do this, don't do this, do this, don't. That's all you hear. And you think to yourself, my goodness, I go outside, I'm told you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. I come inside the masjid and I'm told, oh, forget about those things you can and cannot do outside, but I'm going to tell you some more things that you can and cannot do. You're like a prisoner. And you think to yourself, well, where's my freedom? I'm outside, I'm obliged by the law of the land. Then whichever profession I belong to, or whichever business I belong to, I'm regulated. Whichever, so you've got the law, you've got regulation, then you've got social pressures on you, you've got political pressures on you, you've got all sorts of pressures, and then you run away from all of that, come into the masjid, and the Imam Sahib says, oh, you better do this, you better do this, you better do this, you can't do this, you can't. And you say, well, where do I go? Everywhere I go, I get told what to do and what not to do. So all I am is a machine that is juggling various obligations. The law is telling me something, don't do this. Regulatory body is telling me don't do this, don't do this. And then family and social pressure. And then the cream on the cake is the scholar in the masjid. He's saying, you must do this, you will be a sinner if you do this. And he said, what's this all about? Is this what it's all about? Juggling with all those various obligations. And the scholars who the traditional scholars, their answer will be yes. That's it. That's what life is about. Juggling with the various obligations placed upon you. But then when you start to look at the Quran from the perspective of your real purpose, then you don't forget these things. I'm not saying give up your business or give up your work or give up your study or give up everything and become a recluse or become a hermit and leave society, and like these Sufis used to do, where they just go out and they're... Sorry. That's not the purpose. There were two awliya. There was one Waliullah in the time of Hazrat Junaid al-Baghdadi alayhi rahmah, and it was known that his status, that other person who is not popular, and Hazrat Junaid al-Baghdadi was popular, but this other Waliullah, his status was greater than Hazrat Junaid al-Baghdadi's. In the ranks of awliya, it was known that his rank was greater. So when Hazrat Junaid, that person died before Hazrat Junaid, and when Hazrat Junaid al-Baghdadi died, when he went on the other side, he realized that his status was greater than that Waliullah. And then he asked the question, he says, "Oh Allah, his status was greater than mine in the dunya. Why is my status greater than him in the hereafter?" And Allah responded, "Because you were married and he wasn't." So he gave up the dunya. And he didn't have to deal with problems with his wife, because he had no wife. And yes, he excelled in the dunya with his spiritual status on account of that lack of hassle. But you married, and you endured the trials and tribulation which every marriage comes with. No marriage on this earth has been, excuse the expression, hunky-dory. Even a marriage of prophets, there's been problems. But the idea is that you deal with those, but you don't let those problems, marital problems for example, you don't allow those problems to inhibit your life so you forget your purpose. What happens is people go through marital problems and that's it. It's like this, of course I would never dream to mention his name, dinosaur of an alim from India. From UP. I used to rate him. Now he's passed away. May Allah give him Jannatul Firdaus. I was an absolute dinosaur. I met him at the age of 80. And one day I met him and he was trembling and he was like, as if, World War III has started. And I said, "Hazrat, what happened to you?" He goes, "Mar gaye. And I said, "What happened?" And he told me that he was depressed and he was on the brink of a suicidal tendency because his 18-year-old daughter-in-law had conspired against him. And I thought to myself, an 18-year-old can rock the boat of an 80-year-old alim who has for the whole of his life learnt knowledge. Where didn't that knowledge come to his rescue when it comes to problems? So don't think that by excelling in ibadat or in your knowledge, it will help in your problems. Of course, wisdom helps, but knowledge doesn't help. You can't go up to your wife and say, "Oi, do you know who I am? I know X, Y, and Z." She says, "So what? What difference does that make?" At the end of the day, when you have a problem, you have to deal with that problem. And that problem is part of the trial and tribulations of life. But some people become so inhibited, they can't do anything else. I once, many years ago, I told this gentleman, I phoned him up, I said, "I'm going for a lecture, would you like to come?" He goes, "I'm not in the mood." I'm not in the mood. I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "I've had a bani with my wife." So because of that bani with his wife, he didn't go to a mehfil. And imagine the blessings that he could have got at the mehfil. But anyway, point aside, when we are engrossed in these problems, our eye loses focus of the ball. We get distracted here, there and everywhere. Or what I call in rugby, you get so engaged in the scrum that you forget the game. But I'm sorry to use this word, the game. Maybe I should have used this 2 years after Dars Quran. The game. Because there is a certain truth to this, but we don't say it disrespectfully. that this is a software and hardware animation that we are living in. So we have to ask ourselves a very serious question. What is my purpose in life? What am I here for? Am I here for just X, Y, and Z, or is there a greater purpose? And the Quran is telling you your greater purpose. It starts off by saying, by the way, you made a promise. Me? No. Who? What? When? How? And then it says, let me tell you a bit about yourself. كَيْفَ تَكْفُرُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَكُنْتُمْ أَمْوَاتًا. You were dead. Oh, I've been told by my science teacher that death is the end. Death is zeros. Death is... But no, I explained in my session last week that death is superior to life. Death is actually superior from the perspective of existence. Death is superior to life. Because when you measure life, how do you measure life? It's not that my life is better than yours because I can eat more than you. My life is better than yours because I can sleep better than you, more than you. The quantity of the measure of quality is based on factors like I have hearing, I have seeing, you have seen. So we have parallel. Of course, those who don't have these benefits, their quality of their life is impaired. But it's based on your mental capacity. Your knowledge only adds to the portfolio of your wisdom, but per se knowledge is nothing. If it doesn't, knowledge is just a light. But if you don't know where to go, you can run around in light, but you've got no destination. That's why you see many people, ulama, who have a lot of knowledge, but they don't know where to go. And the Quran actually describes ulama, people of knowledge, like donkeys. And how, I'm sorry to use that word, how crude is that? مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ حُمِّلُوا التَّوْرَاةَ. The example of those ulama of the Torah, كَمَثَلِ الْحِمَارِ, are like donkeys. يَحْمِلُ أَسْفَارًا. You put 10 books like this on a donkey, the donkey will not be able to distinguish between this weight and the weight of bricks or the weight of hay. For the donkey, it's just weight. And then if you go and whisper in the donkey's ears and say, excuse me, dear donkey, I've got tafsir of the Quran on your back. He'll say, and then what? What do you want me to do with it? Where do you want me to go with it? I'll go where you want me to, but it doesn't take me anywhere. So this Quran has to, is guiding you as to your real purpose. So death, if you look at death from the spectacles of the Quran and Sunnah, death is superior. In death you have greater wisdom. Let me ask you a question. Does anyone in this room speak fluent Arabic? The answer is yes, you all do, but you don't have that facility enacted in your... When I explained last time, when you were in conversation with Allah, Allah said, Alastu bi rabbikum, that's Arabic. And you didn't say at that juncture, oh no, I don't speak, my language is not Arabic. No, your ruh spoke Arabic. Then when you go into your grave, the questions will not be in your native language, they will be in Arabic. And you won't require an interpreter, because you know Arabic. It is the language of fitrah. And so therefore, just as an example I've given you, in that period which was classified as death, you had knowledge of Arabic. You had so much more knowledge than you realize. You are a walking museum, and you don't realize what kind of a museum is within you. And the Quran is telling you, listen, don't just think that you were born and you live your life and that's you. No, you had an existence before. Find that existence. Come, we will tell you, the Quran will tell you, what is the nature of that existence. Then it says you're going to have an inferior existence called life. If I say that to a scientist, he'll laugh in my face, or she'll laugh in my face. Life is an inferior form of existence? Yes, it is. This life is an inferior form of existence. Then the death that follows it, is still a superior form of existence than this life. The only difference between death, life is transition. It's just one of transition. That's why the Quran describes death as kullu nafsin za'iqatul maut. Every nafs will taste. Taste is something you drink, you taste, the taste is gone, finished. It's a transitory phase. And if you allow me to use this language, all the difference between these four phases is a legal difference. It's just a legal difference. You are still in existence. You have an existence. But when you are dead, as in not born, your legal capacity is different. When you are alive, your legal capacity is different. When you are dead, after this life, your legal, it's all about legalities. It's just a label. But in all forms of this existence, you are alive. You are in existence. And it's finding the reality of that existence. So let's move on. فَأَحْيَاكُمْ, and then we gave you life. So there's three parts of this life. The first part of this life is 9 months approximately, give or take, in the womb of your mother. Have no knowledge of that life. You have no reality of that life. But the impact of that life is that up to the age of puberty, whatever you do, you are covered by an insurance policy which does not necessitate any azab upon you, any punishment upon you for any wrongdoings, because you are immune, you are ma'soom anil khata, incapable of committing crime. Even in English law, any child below the age of 10 cannot be prosecuted for a criminal offence. The Latin term is dola in capax, incapable of crime. Between 10 to 14, there is a rebuttable presumption that a child can commit a crime. So the starting point is no, but then if there are factors that sway the Crown Prosecution Service, they can prosecute between 10 and 14. But the default position is no, up to the age of 14. After 14, you are considered a legal person for the purposes of prosecution. So this existence from the womb of your mother, from the inception of your time in the womb of your mother, till puberty, you are ma'soom. You're not capable of crime. No guna upon you. Even if you committed the most heinous guna on this earth, which is shirk, the angel will not write shirk, even though you committed shirk. The most heinous crime, this angel is sat on his laurels till the age of puberty. And the moment puberty comes, he goes, right, let's start the engine now. And he'll write from the age of puberty. So that's one phase of your life. Then the second phase of your life, second and third, we know the second, which is after puberty, we are legal persons, we live, we have a body, we eat, we do all sorts of things. But there's a part of this life which we actually don't have any understanding about. And that is half of our life. Well, for most people it's half, or for some people it's 40%, some people it's 30%, it depends what profession you belong to. For a significant portion of your life, you spend sleeping. And in that sleep, science tells you it is the end. That's it. But the Quran tells you, no, that is your life. And you have an existence even when you are sleeping. Why? When you are sleeping, sometimes you dream. Well, I don't like this word dream, by the way. But sometimes you see. And what you see, science can't explain that. But that is nevertheless a credible life. You know, we say sleep is the sister of death. But actually, you know, and do look this up afterwards, don't rely on me. There was a totally illiterate American guy, his name was Edgar Cayce. Cayce spelled C-A-S-E-Y. Thank you for that. Edgar Cayce, total, you know, what we say, Jahil Gawar. No knowledge of anything to do with anything. Look him up. You'll only find a little bit about him, because once the CIA found out about him, they nabbed him, took him away. Today, I think in California, you have the Institute of Edgar Cayce, but what he, you know, like, what's his name? What's that hunchback who made predictions? What's his name? Oh, sorry, it's not Hunchback. I was thinking of Quasimodo. Sorry, no, Nostradamus. He made predictions, but the CIA went around to contain him. But Edgar Cayce, you ask him any scientific question, any technical question, he'll say, "All right, let me go to sleep." He'll go to sleep, wake up in the morning, he'll tell you the answer. And the CIA were baffled, so they would ask him intimate questions, and he would go to sleep, and he would wake up, and he would tell them the answer. Look at Edgar Cayce. Don't rely on what I say. Look at Edgar Cayce. Doesn't Edgar Cayce raise the question in your mind and that is, how the blank did this guy go to sleep and get all that information? The Quran has to tell us the answers, because the manufacturer knows. Okay, I'm going to introduce someone else. Sorry, I gave you an example of the sleeping. I didn't give you an example of those who are awake. And I give this example just to stimulate your, thing. There's a monk. His name is Ramjon, Ramjon. He's in Tibet. And don't rely on my word. Do your own research. Discovery Channel did research. National Geography did research. This guy, he's a monk, a Tibetan monk. He sits under a tree. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 9 months. No food, no water, no movement. And of course the local Tibetan people, being who they are, they think he's a god or the reincarnation of Krishna. But anyway, whoever, whatever. This guy does not eat, does not sleep. So they put cameras. This is not a joke. They put cameras. And Discovery Channels, they don't, promote, myths. The Indian government commissioned an inquiry on this guy. Doesn't eat, doesn't sleep, doesn't talk, doesn't walk, sat in one position under a tree, 9 months, nothing happens. And then in the 9 months, another monk from another place comes, sits opposite him, closes his eyes. This guy starts sweating, and you see there's a slight movement, but that's it. And after 9 months, he gets up and he's gone. This is a spectacle of life, which we think, unless science verifies it. Well, science is deaf and dumb. It doesn't understand. How can a human being live for 9 months without eating, without excreting? Well, excreting, that's easy, because if there's nothing going in, there's nothing coming out. How does he... No conversation, no movement, and he's not moving. If you leave your arm for too long in one position, after a period of time, you'll notice that when you try to bend it, there will be pain. But this guy sat in this position. I don't know whether I'm imitating him correctly, but he just sat in this position. And science says, we don't know. The Indian government commissioned a group of scientists, and they said, we don't know what's going on here. 9 months later, he's gone. His nails are growing. His hair are growing. Oh, absolutely. His hair are growing. So that it's not an illusion. It's not an illusion that, because magic is illusion, where your eye is conned. Magic, and this idea of black magic is totally wrong, because it's not actually magic. There's no such a thing as black magic. Firstly, it's racist. But secondly, there's no such a thing as black magic. It's called sorcery, as propagated by our friend Harry Potter. Sorcery, that's the proper name. Witchcraft, that's the word. This black magic is just to dilute it, to take it in a different direction. A magician is conning your eye. That's all he's doing. He's playing tricks with your eyes. But sorcery is not a trick with your eye. Sorcery is not a trick with your eye. Sorcery is using, if you allow me to use the word, extraterrestrial forces. See, if I said jinns, you'd say, yeah. But extraterrestrial forces to defy the law of science. And people like Dynamo, and what's the other one? The Dynamo and the other magician who... David Blaine. Oh, absolutely. This is not magic. This is a form of sorcery. And of course, no one's going to come out in the open and say, well, I'm going to do sorcery and I'm going to destroy you all. It's a company. They're going to have a sales pitch. They're going to try to bring people in. Hey, I will do something that will surprise you. I will put my hand in the table and it will come out over here. This is a defiance of the law of nature. So that's how it all starts. And that's how, in the history of sorcery, if you look at the history of sorcery, we're not going to talk about sorcery now, by the way. At the right juncture, we will. Because in verses to come, it talks about sorcery. But if you look at the history of sorcery, it never starts off with, please join me because I am evil. That's not how sorcerers work. It's like, there's a sales pitch. Absolutely. Exactly the same as McDonald's. It appeases to your intrigue. It appeases to your eyes. It plants certain seeds in your mind that you automatically work towards it. So, oh gosh, where did I end up talking about sorcery? Please tell me where this all started from. MashaAllah.
You're talking about in sleep we see stuff.
Yeah.
Science calls him, but we can't fathom how.
So I gave you an example of the sleep, Edgar Casey. You see, if I would have said Haji Muhammad Hussain, you would have said, yeah, it's probably some scam. But I'm talking about Edgar Casey. No deen, no iman. He's not a Haji, he's not a Sufi. He's not even a Muslim. And he'll give you answers. You ask him the most technical equation in the morning, he'll give you the answers. Then you've got, on the other hand, and he's still living, by the way, Edgar Casey died a number of years ago. But you've got Mr. Ramjon. He's just an example. There's other monks who levitate. Science can't understand how levitation takes place. His nails are growing and he gets up. And 9 months later they interview him and he says, yeah, he's talking like a normal human being. So there's nothing different on the face of it between Mr. Ramjon and us, but he's performing this so-called miracle. So what do we say? Oh, sorry, we didn't know. This is a miracle. We're not even... And what the people of other religions do, they say, oh, we're going to shun him because he's not part of our religion. If he was a Muslim, people would promote him. At least Muslims will promote him. But because he's not a Muslim, Muslims turn away from him and say, no, we're not going to talk about him. He's a Hindu. But no, the question is not whether he's a Hindu or a Muslim. The question is, he is doing something which defies the law of nature, which defies the law of science. And you have to have answers to that. And the answers are here. The answers are here. The Quran talks about manipulating the body, or the body being manipulated to defy the laws of nature. Remember this title. I may give you an example now, or I may not. I may say, let's just move on. Remember this title. The Quran talks about this body defying the laws of nature. Would you like an example, or shall we just move on?
Give an example.
Example. Right. The Quran says, don't worry about Ramjon. He's junior. He's only at a very, in a game, software, in one of these software games, you have different levels. The Quran talks, he's only at level 1. Let's talk about someone who's at level 10. His nails grow, his hair grow. And 9 months later, he is 9 months older than he was 9 months before. But there were some people in the Quran, which the Quran talks about, Surah Kahf, the Ashab Kahf. 300 years they slept. And when they woke up, the nails hadn't grown, the hair hadn't grown, and one said to the other, how long have we been sleeping? It's like two roommates sleeping in the same room. And one waking up, they're both waking up. How long did we sleep last night? So one says, oh, you slept 8 hours. The other says, no, I think I slept only 2 hours. I didn't have a comfortable sleep. That's a normal question, isn't it? You ask people you live with. So one of these people in the cave, and they weren't prophets, by the way. These are awliya. One of them asked the other, how long did we sleep? And they replied, labithna yawman aw ba'da yawm, a day or so. So 300 years, and they reckoned it was a day or so. 300 years. They slept for 300 years. And they didn't eat, and they did sleep. They didn't eat, and they didn't excrete they remained exactly in the state that they were as you are the night before. I mean, you don't change overnight. When you go to sleep in the morning, you're the same person. Your position is exactly the same. But these people, they were made to sleep for 300 years. So can you see, the Quran is talking of a more superior manipulation of the body than what Buddhist monks have discovered now. And I'm not saying that because they've discovered it, therefore we should dismiss it. I'm saying if they have discovered it, well, we should discover the reality of that from the Quran. How did they do that? And this is one example. I can give you many examples from the Quran of how in this life the laws of science have been defied. And you have to ask yourself a question. Is that if the Quran is telling you about the defiance of the laws of science, what's it got to do with you? Well, it's an invitation, isn't it? Maybe you can have that power. Maybe you can have that facility. Maybe not. But there's no harm in finding out, is there? Because all that which is in them is also within you. You are a walking, talking symbol of so much. But because you don't know yourself, you don't know your destination. So, فَأَحْيَاكُمْ, I could deliver another 10 lectures just on this word, فَأَحْيَاكُمْ. But let's move on. فَأَحْيَا, and then we gave you life. So this life is divided into, from mother's womb to puberty, post-puberty into two parts, awake and asleep. We don't understand our reality whilst we're awake, we don't understand whilst we're asleep. As far as we're concerned, both of them is just a question of clocking the hours, ticking the time, and that's how we are, a machine. But if we understand our purpose, our sleep becomes operative. And if we understand our purpose, our awaking state becomes operative. So the sleeping state is not negligible. It's not minor. When Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu an asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, give me an evidence of your nabuwah. Give me an evidence of your prophethood." The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't produce a miracle. Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq had a dream many years ago in Syria that the final prophet has come whilst he was on business. He had a dream. And the Prophet ﷺ looked at Abu Bakr Siddiq and smiled and said, "Oh Abu Bakr, wasn't your dream in Syria enough of a miracle?" How is that possible? That he is referring to a dream that took place there. How is that possible? The dynamics, you see, science has just called it dreams. And dreams is a very derogatory term. If I want to offend you, when you're talking, I say, dream on. Isn't it? It's a derogatory term. But in the Quran and Sunnah, that when you go to sleep, it's a credible state. It's actually a credible state. But we don't understand that state. So فَأَحْيَاكُمْ, awake and asleep. Then ثُمَّ يُمِيتُكُمْ, then he will give you death. But this death, again it's superior to life. This death will now give you a status based upon what you gave yourself in this life. The status you gave yourself in this life will determine your status in the second. So amwat, the second death, for example, a shaheed. A shaheed is scientifically dead. A shaheed is in Sharia dead. But Allah, the manufacturer, says, وَلَا تَقُولُوا, don't say that he is dead. Yet, we carry out all the rituals of a dead person upon this shaheed. Do we not? We read namaz janazah. We call his wife a widower, right? We distribute his estate. These are things that you do to dead people. But the Quran is saying, وَلَا تَقُولُوا, don't even say. Why? بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ, they are living. وَلَكِنْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ, and you can't perceive. So then, is that, so as some nincompoops have said, oh, that's just out of respect, don't call them dead. You don't call, no. The other verse on this, or about shuhada, is وَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ الَّذِينَ قُتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتًا. Don't even think that those people who have given their life in Allah are dead. Why? بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ. They are alive. عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. Their rizq is with Allah Azza wa Jal. Rizq is not for the soul. Rizq is for the body. So their body is sustained in their grave by Allah Azza wa Jal. بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ. Their rizq is given by Allah. So their body is sustained in their grave. And how that body is, science doesn't understand. Science understands that if you embalm someone and apply certain chemicals, yes, that can possibly save certain aspects of the body. Or there's a chemical a reaction which some bodies, not everybody, has, which scientists call, if I'm correct, please do correct me if I'm wrong, it's called surpification, where there's a chemical reaction takes place in the body that the body self-preserves itself. That is what happened to the body of Fir'aun. And Allah says, وَنَجَّيْنَا بَدْنَا فِرْعَوْنَ. And we preserved the body of Fir'aun. So that chemical reaction took place where it self-preserved itself. But if you look at the body of Fir'aun now, although the body is preserved, it's quite an ugly state. Whereas in Sahih Bukhari, they were doing trench work around the house of Sayyidah Aisha radiyallahu anha. You know, they wanted to rebuild the wall, because that's where the Prophet ﷺ was buried. And this was almost 120, I calculated in my last lecture, 120 years after the demise of the Prophet ﷺ, they were doing trench work around the house of Sayyidah Aisha. So, and when they dug the trenches, someone found a foot. And there was a huge chaos in Medina Munawwara. We have found the foot of Rasulullah, we have found the foot of Rasulullah, we have found the foot of Rasulullah. Because it was fresh, as if it's just been buried. But no. On the scene, there was a tabi'i who was present on the scene at that juncture. He came to the site of the trenches around the house of Sayyidah Aisha. He looked at the foot. He said, Wallahi, I swear by Allah, this is not the foot of Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the foot of Sayyidina Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu. Yeah. Bal ahya'un, they are alive. Inda rabbihim yurzaqun. Allah has preserved their body. So their body will endure no form of degeneration. You will find their body in exactly the same way as you found it. Pasha, who was the governor of Iraq in the last Ottoman Empire, Aziz Pasha, his name was, Aziz Pasha. Many times Hazrat Jabir bin Abdullah visited him in his, not dream, in his sleep, and said, there is a flood near my grave, remove that. And he had a dream and then woke up in the morning and thought, no, maybe this is just a dream. But 3 times the Hazrat Jabir bin Abdullah came to him in his dream. He spoke to ulama, and the ulama, the Turkish ulama who were in governance there, they said, well, if it's 3 times, it can't be a coincidence. So when they dug the body of 2 Sahaba, this is 1910, I think. If you Google it there's signs of Hazrat Jabir bin Abdullah. So when they dug the trench, the grave, they found the physical body of 2 Sahaba. And they read the Namaz Janazah again after that. And they reburied him again. And there are not one example, there are so many examples of this to show you that the preservation of the body is something which is very... Hazrat Ali karramallahu wajhal kareem, before he passed away, he was shaheed. And when it came for his burial, he said to his son, Hazrat Imam Hassan and Hussein, he said, bury me in such and such a place. Don't tell the Shia where I'm buried. In the morning, the Shia turned up and said, where's our Ali? Imam Hassan and Hussein said, sorry, he told us not to tell anyone where he is buried. So those community of Shias, they dug up the whole mountain, but they couldn't find the body of Hazrat Ali in Kufa. They couldn't find the body of Hazrat Ali in Kufa. Outside Kufa. Kufa. They couldn't find the body. 100 years approximately later, there was a Khalifa called Amr bin Abdul Aziz. Amr bin Abdul Aziz, alayhi rahmah. Hazrat Ali came to him whilst he was sleeping. Again, I don't use the word dream. He came to him whilst he said, I am buried in such and such a place. Remove my body from there and take it to such and such a place. Second night, he had the same dream, same vision. Same meeting with Hazrat Ali. Third night, when he had it again, he could not resist. So where Hazrat Ali had told him where he's buried, and he said to Hazrat Ali, how will I recognize you? How will I know it's you? If I dig up a body, how will I recognize you? Hazrat Ali said, next to me will be my sword, the Zulfiqar. Yeah, that's the recognition that this is Ali. So 100 years approximately later, the grave of Hazrat Ali was uncovered by Amr bin Abdul Aziz, and he shifted his body from Kufa to Najaf Ashraf, where he's buried today. 100 years later. Oh yes. And I can carry on and on and on and on till the cows come home and tell you so many examples of this. And you would be shocked. You know, Hazrat Musa alayhi salam was told, get the body of Yusuf alayhi salam and bury him there. Yeah. There's so many examples, but at the right juncture we'll talk about this. The point I'm trying to make is that we need to ask questions. How is our body able to perform these, these, we call them miracles. But the Quran says, when Maryam alayhi salam was told she's going to be expecting, and she says, Lam yamsasni bashara, no bashar has touched me. What was the response? Qala kadhalik. Just like that. Something is easy. How did you do this? Just like that. That's Allah's response. Qala kadhalik. Just like that. Aise when you want to, no big deal, aise just like that. Qala kadhalik. So these things, your manufacturer is inviting you. Don't think your existence is just you waking up in the morning and doing X, Y, and Z and then going back to sleep. No. Stand back and consider your existence and ask yourself, who am I? Where did I come from? What am I doing here? What is my purpose? Where am I going? فَأَحْيَاكُمْ ثُمَّ يُمِيتُكُمْ ثُمَّ يُحْيِيكُمْ. Then after that death, which is again a legal title, we will now give you a life. And it doesn't matter who you are, Muslim, non-Muslim, we'll give you a life now. But your life now will depend on your previous status. ثُمَّ إِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. And then you will come back to Him, as in where you started your journey. So ultimately you're going to have to come back to Him. Having given you this, when a manufacturer says, you were this, you were this, you were this, there's a certain, not harshness, but there's a certain, seriousness to this, isn't there? You were this, you were this, you were this. So to break the temperament and to make it more edible or more palatable, now the next verse is a much softer verse. It's full of love. In fact, all these verses are full of love. But the next verse is, I normally call it the cream on the cake. So here, now Allah says, هُوَ الَّذِي, it is He, Allah, خَلَقَ لَكُمْ, created for you. Your existence is this. But He created everything for you. Everything for you. So the ecosystem, the system of, what's that system in biology? Where, one is above the other, is above the other, is above the other. Not the ecosystem, it's called the food chain. The food chain. The food chain exists for you. Look how much pyar there is. A parent says to his child, tells the child off, don't do this, how dare you do this? Don't you know I did this for you? Don't you know I did this? And then he says, everything I have is for you. And this is a pyar. Can you see the pyar? So now Allah is saying, هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ لَكُمْ. It is He who made everything for you. What? مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. Everything on this earth for you. And not just this earth. Look at the love. He says, ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى إِلَى السَّمَاءِ. Then once He made this earth, it's almost as if people think that the heavens were made first. The consensus of scholars is that the earth was made first. The earth was made first. So we have to accept that if the earth was made first, the operation on this earth is central to this universe. And us being idiots, we look at the universe to find answers on this earth, but Allah says, this earth was the beginning. Yeah, this earth was the هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ لَكُمْ. Everything was made for you. The food chain, whatever happens, the ecosystem, everything revolves around its purpose. And what is that purpose? For you. You know, like the father says, what do I earn for? What is all what I've got? It's for you. هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ لَكُمْ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى إِلَى السَّمَاءِ. Then, how has Mr. Pickles translated this? Then, very good. Then He turned to the heaven, istawa. The people who call themselves Ahl Hadith or Salafis, they translate this word in a very different way. Then for summa stawa, He does istawa, that He ascends to the heavens. He ascends. And this, then He turned to, is also wrong. Turned to, it can technically be wrong. I mean, you can argue it both ways. Depends which lawyer you have. But he turned to. Allah doesn't turn. Allah doesn't turn. Me and you turn. Allah doesn't turn. The proper translation is, in Urdu, Phir tawajjuh farmayi. Then He paid attention to the heavens. So first He created the earth, then He created the heavens. ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى إِلَى السَّمَاءِ. I'm going to talk about the creation of the heavens and the earth a bit later on. But for now, we can establish that the earth was created first. Okay? And what was it created for? It was created for you. Not for jinns, not for or animals. It was created. You are the maqsood of this. Maqsood. You are the purpose of this earth. And yet you don't know your own purpose. Let's repeat that. You are the purpose of this earth, but you don't know your own purpose. Yeah? You don't know your own purpose. Yes?
Didn't you earlier discuss that we were aliens to the earth?
Yes. We are aliens. But this earth was created for us. Yes. The fact that we didn't... the earth wasn't made for our hospitability. It was made for our test. لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. So Allah can test you. And we're going to talk about tests. But the fact that you're aliens doesn't matter. This earth was created for you. Yeah. This earth is not hospitable to you because every year you age. Every year you have some other medical issue. This is not your home. Your real home is a place where you don't age, where you don't excrete, where you don't have problems, where you don't have any issues. That's your real place. But anyway, let's carry on. ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى Phir tawajjuh farmayi. Then He paid attention towards as-sama, the heavens. فَسَوَّاهُنَّ سَبْعَ سَمَاوَاتٍ. Then He made 7 heavens. Again, we'll talk about this a bit later on. I don't want to overwhelm you at this stage about the creation of the heavens. وَهُوَ بِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ عَلِيمٍ. And He's the knower of all things. Now is the purpose. Having told you your existence and then given you a bit of lard and pyar, तुम्हारे लिए बनाइए. This is, everything is for you. ये बज़्म कायनात तुम्हारे लिए सजाई है. After saying that, then He says, come, now I'll tell you your real purpose. Your real purpose is in the next verse. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ. When Allah said to the angels, إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. I want to create on this earth a Khalifa. Are you following where this is going now? Having given those two previous verses, our existence and that statement of love, everything is for you. Now, he's coming to the point. Allah does not need to consult. Allah does not need to seek advice. Allah is perfect. Allah is all knowledgeable. But if Allah seeks advice from others, then seeking advice is the sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is not a dictator. Allah is not a totalitarian ruler. He likes to do mashwara. Yeah. And those people who do mashwara follow the sunnah of Allah. These narcissists who everything revolves around themselves. No. Allah is very accommodating. So he does mashwara. And he says, Kya khayal hai bhai? What do you think? Inni ja'ilun fil ardi. And who is he doing mashwara with? Not with animals. Not with the heavens, not with the earth. By the way, heavens and earth are living phenomena. Remember I told you, I think a few lectures ago, Allah spoke to the heavens. Allah spoke to the earth. Oh yes. They have a personality. Allah spoke to them. Bhai, do you want discretion? Al-amana, do you want it? The earth said, no, thank you. The heavens said, no, thank you. Allah offered it to many entities in the heavens and the earth. No one took this. And the Quran says, فَحَمَلَهُ الْإِنسَانِ Insan said, okay, yeah, I'll take it on. I'll take on this challenge. You took on a challenge which you don't remember. You took on a challenge which you don't remember. And what was that challenge? The challenge was, give me the power of discretion, and I will show you that using that power, I will come back to you. I will come back to you. So now Allah does mashwara with the angels. Why? Because the most superior creation at that time were the angels. Note these words. At that time were the angels. So naturally he's going to consult the angels. Inni ja'ilun, I'm about to create for the earth, fil ardi khalifa. Bear in mind, there's a technical point here. He doesn't say, I want to create for the universe a khalifa. Notable point. Fil ard, I want to create for the earth. Why not the universe? The universe already had a Khalifa. It didn't require a Khalifa. But Allah wanted to place His Khilafat on this earth. So He's consulting the angels. With His question, the angels knew exactly what He was referring to. They didn't say, who? Who's going to be the Khalifa? They didn't say, what, how, details. No, nothing. They knew exactly what Allah was saying. By Khalifa, Allah referred to, and some people say this refers to Adam alayhi salam. No, it refers to the entire human race. Khalifa. Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. I would like to create a Khalifa on this earth. Al-Khilafa. This referred to the whole human race. The angels gave a very, very knowledgeable and scientific response. What was their response? Look how they responded. This is what you call aql. Very, very clever. Angels have aql. They didn't say, we are better than him. How can you give khilafat to a human being? They understood what khilafat entailed. We're going to talk about what khilafat entails. Ulama don't understand what khilafat entails. They just say, Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa, but they don't understand what khilafat is. What the connotations of khilafat are. So, the angels gave a very, very, I wouldn't say diplomatic answer, because in diplomacy there is cunningness and there is chalaki, and angels are not chalak. They are very straightforward. But they gave a very, very knowledgeable answer. Why? Because Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. We didn't create jinns and humans except for one purpose. And what was that purpose? لِيَعْبُدُونَ, to worship. But worship is not limited to ritual worship. It includes ritual worship. But there's a lot more at stake here. So the angels knew of that purpose. They knew that verse. The angels knew of the Quran. Because of course the Quran wasn't brought into existence later. The Quran was in existence even before the angels. Because the Quran is qadeem, it is kalamullah. It existed before angels. It has no beginning. Right? So the angels had knowledge of this verse. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. We created man and jinn except for ibadat. So look at their response. Look at their response. It's almost like the response of a man who asks his wife that he wants to do a second nikah. Exactly the same. He says, my beloved wife, I want to remarry again. Her immediate response is, am I not enough? Kya main kafi nahi? Am I not enough? What's wrong with me that you want to marry again? That's the discussion, isn't it? Very sensitive and very sour topic. But that's a sensible woman would, and it's a sensible question, answer. What's wrong with me that you need a second? The angels gave exactly the same. أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا بِالْكُلْ, like second wife. Why are you going to take all that hassle? Why are you going to, I'm giving you all that. No. أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا, are you going to create in this earth مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا, those who do fasad in this earth? He wasn't talking about Adam alayhi salam. He wasn't talking about Anbiya alayhi salam. He wasn't talking about awliya. They were talking about those who were non-awliya, those who were non-anbiya, non-shuhada. They were talking about ordinary human beings, Muslim or non-Muslim. Oh Allah, they will do fasad in the earth. So now, let me ask you a question. If someone comes to you and says, why don't you move to Northampton? Don't live in Nottingham, go to Northampton. And your answer, their answer is, why should I move to Northampton? Your answer is, well, because in Nottingham there will be riots, there will be bloodshed. And you say, how do you know? That's a matter of the future. How do you know the future? This is ilmul ghaib, knowledge of the future. The angels are responding to Allah with ilmul ghaib. And Allah is not saying, astaghfirullah, this is shirk. Why? Only I have ilm ghaib. Shut up. How can you say that this will happen, this will... This is knowledge of the future. Why? Because the angels were not Salafis. They knew the knowledge of the future. And their response was of ilm ghaib. أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ... Time gauge? Sorry. Time gauge? أَتَجْعَلُ فِيهَا مَنْ يُفْسِدُ فِيهَا, will you create in it, in this earth, those who do fasad? And then not only that, they were more graphic. Subhanallah. They didn't look at the good things that humans would do. Yeah. They wouldn't look at the fact that, they would, the idiots would build in the ocean, even though they've got plenty of land. They wouldn't look at those idiotic things. They would say, وَيَسْفِكُ الدِّمَاء, rivers of blood will flow. Rivers of blood will flow. Sometimes I think about Enoch Powell. He was a British politician in the 60s. He used to say, do not join Europe. Do not allow these Pakistanis and Indians to come to this country. Why? Rivers of blood will flow. Rivers of blood will flow. I take particular regard to that. Because the angels use this language. Rivers of blood will flow. Khoon ki nadiyan beh jayengi. And then Allah didn't say, how do you know? This is the knowledge of the future. And then having gone on the offensive against the human race by extolling their bad parts, then they come onto themselves and say, نَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. Are we not enough? This is a istifham in there, this is a question in there. نَحْنُ نُسَبِّحُ بِحَمْدِكَ وَنُقَدِّسُ لَكَ. Are we not enough for your ibadat, O Allah? You created man and jinn for your ibadat, but are we not enough? Our ibadat is perfect. We do not sin. We are given immense power and knowledge by you. Are we not enough? And Allah didn't say, no, you are not enough. Allah didn't say, your argument is wrong. Allah said, Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamun. What you are saying is correct from your knowledge. They will be deficient. They will be defective. They will be gunagar. They will be sinners. They will be imperfect. But despite that imperfection, despite that status they have, I will raise their rank over the rank of the entire universe. Inni a'lamu ma la ta'lamun. Oh angels, I know that which you don't know. There's something about this human being that you don't know. I know. And my invitation to you is, you should find out what Allah was alluding to on that day. I know. Oh, it's 30. Okay. That I know what you don't know. So we need to know about ourselves what angels did not know. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ.